Make sure that I'm recording this. Fantastic. All right. So, everyone who's just joined, full name in the chat, and we'll begin. All right. So, words in context. These are the like vocabulary questions on the SAT, right? So what we have here is what we get. Obviously, this is not exactly what they're like, but the structure is the same, right? So it will say something like try as he might. We get this blank word, and then we get like all the options that could go, right? And so what we want to do is the method that we want to use to like approach these questions. Obviously, like some you might immediately know the answer, but like we want to have like a systematic approach, especially for when the questions get more difficult, right? Some of those tricky module 2 ones, like you can't just like immediately answer them, right? So we have this method called the CARE method, which stands for the cover, anticipate, reveal, eliminate method. So when we get a question like this, what the first thing we want to do, step 1C, is to cover. So even though it maybe seems counterintuitive, we want to be like not looking at the answer choices. So if you trust yourself to not look at them, that's great. Otherwise, you can use a little pen feature, just put your hand over the screen, whatever it is that works for you, so you can trust yourself to not look at the answer choices. So here we get like, it would be try as he might, the young boy was able to fit his blank foot into such a thin slipper. We're not looking at the answer choices. Then we have anticipate. So anticipate is like a 2-step process that we get here, right? First thing is that we want to look for context clues within the text to tell us what the missing word needs to mean. What we always have here is like there's no way, it's never like a random choice, right? We will always be able to determine. Sorry, just people joining. And yeah, for everyone who's just joining, please put your full name in the chat. Great. So the anticipation is like a 2-step process. The first thing we want to do is look for context clues within the body of the text. So that to tell us what the meaning of the word needs to be, right? So here the context clues would be that if it was unable to fit and then into such a thin slipper. This is like the clues in the text that tell us what this word needs to mean. That's the first step of anticipation. The second step of anticipation is to come up with our own word, right? So what we would call our anticipation. So an anticipation is like a word or group of words that captures the meaning of the word in the blank, not necessarily the word itself. So like in this case, like big would make sense, right? Because we've told that he was unable to fit the foot into a thin slipper. It suggests that the foot is big. When you come up with this, I think like often I have students who are trying really hard to come up with like a very sophisticated word. There's really like no point in doing that. It just needs to be anything that helps you know what the meaning of the word is. It can be one word, it can be like a weird string of words put together. Fantastic. So the next step is reveal. So now we look again at the answer choices. So we've covered them. We've come up with our anticipation using the context clues of the text. And now we reveal them again. So that's just like looking at them. And then finally, we eliminate. So we remove the answer choices that don't match first. So in this case, we can see quite clearly, we know that the word needs to mean big, and neither gross, poor, nor smelly mean big, right? So we would go for distended. Does anyone, you can use raise hand function in the chat, does anyone here not know what distended means? I'm assuming some people don't, right? So we might not know what distended means. And this is where the approach to the words in context can seem like a little strange, because we never want to eliminate a mystery choice, right? Just because we don't know the meaning of a word doesn't mean that we can't use it for the answer choice. It is like far better to like pick a word that you don't know the meaning of than it is to choose a word that you do know the meaning of and that doesn't fit, right? We can think of it in many ways, like maybe like trying to put on like a two-type pair of jeans. We don't want to be like, oh, maybe in this context, this word could mean that. It doesn't, right? We want to be like, sometimes we can go for a mystery choice. I think like with this process, worst case scenario, what you get often is if you don't know the meaning of two words, then like there might be a moment where you're choosing between two words you don't mean, but at least that's like a 50-50 like thing. So in this case, we would have try as he might, the young boy was able to fit his distended foot into such a thin slipper, which makes sense because distended means swollen, larger, or rounder in size. Does this any questions so far before we introduce more examples? All right, perfect. Okay, so let's look at another one. So we'd cover the answer choices first, right? And then we look at the text. Because Tony Williams, drummer for the Miles Davis Quintet in the 1960s and an instrumental member of Davis's second great quintet, paved the way for later jazz fusion artists that, like him, blended elements of jazz with rock and funk, he is considered a something of that style. So after we've like looked, we've not looking at the answers, we've read the text, we want to look for the clues. So we have because he paved the way for later jazz fusion, right? So we would say maybe then we're coming up with our anticipation. Perhaps our anticipation could be example, but it doesn't quite work example here. Anyone who's just joining, please put your full name in the chat. He's more than just an example because he paved the way, right? So then we'd maybe be like, oh, he's a paver. And then, so you also can come up with words that don't traditionally mean this as long as you know the meaning of them, right? So in this context, it'd be like, what does paver mean? And it would be, and this would be like an anticipation that works, the person who helped others after. So an anticipation is a word, as we said, a word or group of words that captures the meaning of the word. It can be this like smushed together bunch of words. All it needs to do is help you understand. Don't worry for being late. We're putting the recordings up on the YouTube channel as well. So anyone who was a bit late and wants to watch the beginning part, there will be this will be like available as of tomorrow morning, right? So then we have like the meaning of the word. So now we reveal. Let's look at the answer choices. Does anyone want to put in the chat any suggestions of what we could eliminate at this point? We've got beneficiary, progenitor, composer, and soloist.
Soloist.
Yeah, we can definitely get rid of soloist for sure. Any others we can get rid of? Any other suggestions of what doesn't make sense to be the person who helped others after? Yep, beneficiary doesn't work either. So now we're choosing between composer and progenitor. Which one do we think between composer and progenitor?
I think C is the right answer.
Yes, exactly. Progenitor is the right answer. That's absolutely right. So even if we didn't know the word progenitor, which means a person that first directs or originates something, we can by like process of elimination. Beneficiary is often used in like wills and things. It's someone who's benefiting something, whereas progenitor is the person that directs or originates it. Does this make sense? Any questions on the process? Good stuff. Also, anyone who is just joining, please put your full name in the chat. All right, great. So we'll discuss, I think Tyler's going to discuss transition words tomorrow with everyone. But there's like just a quick primer. There's like 3 kinds of them. There's continuous, contrast, and cause and effects. And they can help us figure out the meaning, right? So if we have that this person was an expert, if we have a continual word, indeed, contrast, despite, or cause and effect, because we can like anticipate what kind of word it will be. Like a continuing, indeed, we were like, oh, she performed exquisitely. Contrast, like despite the expertise, he performed miserably, or because of her expertise, she performed adroitly. All right. Fantastic. So yeah, once we cover transition words more tomorrow, these are like really super useful for words in context. They also help a lot with the reading and stuff. So like if it would be a really good idea for anyone who's available to make sure that they attend tomorrow's session on transition words. All right. So let's do another example together. I'm not going to try and say Picasso's whole name because it's really long. But we have the child of a professor of drawing at the School of Fine Arts in Malaga, Spain. Pablo Picasso was a something youth. His extraordinary talent was obvious at an early age, surpassing his father's abilities to draw by the age of 7. So here, what we're doing is like our context clues here would be his extraordinary talent was obvious at an early age, right? So we would maybe say talented, but he's more than just talented, right? It needs to like put in that it was from an early age. So we would say like talented at an early age. So again, we can use this group of words. It doesn't have to be a single word. All right, which now we've revealed the answer choices, it will start our elimination. Which suggests, what do people think we should eliminate now? Yeah, immature doesn't make sense. Absolutely. Yeah, neither does famous. So we're now choosing between articulate and precocious. Which one do we think it is between precocious and articulate?
I think it might be articulate.
Articulate.
Okay, so articulate, he may well have been articulate. Like, you know, that would like make sense if he was like, but articulate means like being very good at like speaking or like, you know, like well, so what we want here is like, he might have been articulate, but we don't have like context clues within it. So it doesn't mean that you're like talented at an early age, which is exactly what precocious means. So here, precocious is exceptionally clever or talented, especially at a young age. It's often used to describe, you know, like little children who are, you know, kind of wise beyond their years, right? Perfect. All right. All good. Should we try one together? All right. So, what does everyone think that would be some of the context clues in this one? If we've covered our answer choices, so now we need to look at our anticipations and decide which words in the text can like help us. Yeah, I think impossible for researchers to get close enough is really important here. And yeah, exactly, the solitary and elusive nature. So, what do we think our anticipation might be?
Whoa.
What was that, Henry? Any ideas of what anticipation? We could have rare. I think like elusive would also like work as an anticipation word for sure. So let's say like the anticipation could be something like solitary, elusive, all of this. So which ones can we get rid of on the answer choices now we've revealed them?
B.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, we're sure that there were. C, again, like they might be ferocious. We don't know. It's not what we have evidence for in the text. So we're choosing between now endangered and wary. What do we think?
D.
Yeah, exactly. So like they might be endangered. This is when we get these kinds of red herrings, which is like why it's good to hide the answer choices first, because like, you know, if we're seeing this thing about like a, you know, a cat, we're like, oh wow, like this animal may well be endangered, but that's not what we're being told in the text, right? Which is why this method is so helpful, because once we've like gone through, thank you everyone who's putting D, that's exactly right. We know that they have this solitary and elusive nature and it's impossible for them to get close, which suggests they're wary or like fearful. Fantastic. All right, before we do some like I'm about to move over to my iPad, but just like another quick note, most of the questions are like a blank word and it's and you have to choose the correct word. We also get these ones which is like as used in this text, what does blank most nearly mean, right? And like these are often ones where we have like more archaic, like older pieces, often literature or like old bits of writing. So we might see want, we're like, oh, want means desire. But this is another reason why we need to use this method, because as the College Board says, words in context questions don't test the meaning or use of words and phrases that are common in casual everyday speech, right? It's not going to be so straightforward, unfortunately. You know, it's not a test to like make stuff easy. So we need to like not, this is why it's super important is with these ones as well to like not look at the answer clues because it's misleading. There's often these like red herrings there, right? Or like trick answers. So we want to look for clues. So we're saying this is from like the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. Like she's talking about these speeches on behalf of Catholic emancipation, and he says, I read them over and over again with unabated, so like unwavering, firm interest. They gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my own soul, which had frequently flashed through my mind but died away for something of utterance. What do we think could be an anticipation here? So he read these speeches which gave voice to thoughts that he'd had, but which had flashed through his mind but died away for something of utterance. What do we think could be an anticipation here? Any ideas? Either shout it out, raise your hand, pop it in the chat. There's any thoughts? So we've got desire and despair. So I think like not all, I think that like that he definitely like there is like a sense of despair in this that they died away. But like, does anyone what utterance here means like being spoken, right? Yeah. Shaza, thank you so much. Lack is exactly perfect, right? They died away for something of utterance. It's like the fact that they're not spoken, so not enough utterance. And then look, this is what's sometimes really lovely about this method is that like you can also just come up with the exact right answer that you guys, some of you just did. So that's always really satisfying when your brain like comes up with the what, when you come up with the same correct answer. All right, perfect. Any questions on this? I'm gonna like move from um to my iPad so I can annotate. It always takes a second. All right. All right, let's have a look at this one. So read through, um, look for context clues and see what you think your anticipation would be. I'm very happy to either pop in the chat, either put what you think good context clues are, or if you want to do both steps, then just go ahead and write what your anticipation was and we'll work through it together. Great. Yeah, we've got guys, all your vocabulary is so good. These are all great words. We've got like decay. I think then in your like falter would be really good. Worsen, deteriorate. Yeah, something like this. Like all of these words, like worsen, deteriorate, etc. So now we've revealed our answer choices. Which one do we? I think with this one we can do elimination, but I think a lot of you are so close that you might be able to just jump in and see what the correct answer is here. Yeah, perfect. It diminishes over time. So we're saying that its ability to remove these damaged cells deteriorates over time, resulting in this buildup of bad cells. Fantastic. Great. Amazing. Any questions? Fab. All right, let's try another one. So we're dealing with salamanders here. So read through the passage and then either like pop in the chat what you think the context clues are here, or just if you're ready to like do both steps on your own, then like come up with your own anticipation. You're all doing super well. Thank you, Brianni. We've got reduced, deprived. Any other choices? Yeah, I think these are sort of so what we have here in this one is we say that like we've got that like it says that many salamanders have like reduced or non-existent eyesight, and then it says however, so this is this contrast word, so we know that we're like having a change. Yeah, lack of sight I think would be perfect, Henry. Not all cave salamanders, kind of funny phrasing, are completely like let's say like lacking sight, right? Fantastic. So what do we think either what can we anyone want to like suggest which answers we can eliminate here or what we could pick? But I guess if you're gonna, yeah, that is indeed the answer. Thank you. I'd like for a few more to come in so people can have a chance to do it, but really fast. Good job. Yep, perfect. Yeah, exactly. Here we could get rid of disinterested. That doesn't mean lacking. Disabled doesn't mean lacking. Dependent doesn't mean lacking. And so devoid of means like without or lacking. So we would want them that they're devoid of sight. Fantastic. All right. So we're going to do a couple more together as a group like this. And then I will let you guys do some practice on your own from like an official SAT paper, which I'll put in the chat in a minute. All right. Let's have a look at this one. So read it through and then either put in the chat your context clues, or if you're ready to come up with an anticipation, the anticipation of what the word should be. What do we think? The other suggestions. So we're saying that this film by Kurosawa was deemed too, by many in the Japanese film industry, to be too something. I think that, yeah, confusing is really good. Complicated is good. What we've got here is it says like in fact the head of the studio walked out of the screening and disparaged the film as incomprehensible. So like confusing and complicated are all fantastic options. All right, so now we can reveal the answer choices. What do we think we can eliminate in this case? So give me the elimination.
A and C.
A and C, exactly. Cinematic does not mean confusing or complicated. Offensive is also not right. So we're picking between abstruse and experimental.
B.
Yeah, so abstruse is the correct answer here. The film may well be like experimental, and also like obviously like as we know, like experimental films can be a little confusing or complicated, but that's not what the word means. And so here it's perfect that we pick abstruse, which is just like difficult to understand or obscure. Fantastic. Really good work. All right, we'll do one more together and then work on some on our own. I don't like question. All right, here we go. Let's do an alien related one. Yeah, exactly. These are all fantastic. So here we're saying that would likely something that other in preemptive self-defense. And so words like attack, hurt, fight exactly are all what we need. So let's have a look at the answers. What can we, yeah, that is definitely the right answer. Any other, yep, perfect. You've all got it. Exactly. Yeah, so here obviously we can get rid of befriend because that's kind of the opposite. Liquidate, sounds like it could be good, but that is sort of like often selling stock. And then enrage is definitely not strong enough. We don't enrage in preemptive self-defense. We want annihilate. Fantastic. All right, great. So any questions on this method before we do some practice on our own? All right, perfect. So I'm going to put a link to a practice paper in the chat. This is one of the paper versions of the digital SAT. So click on that. You should be able to access it. Let me know if anyone has any issues accessing it. And what we're going to be doing is from module 1, so right at the beginning, questions 1 to 8. And I'll give everyone, we'll do this for 12 minutes. I will put a timer up on my iPad, and then in 12 minutes, we'll review it together. But just if, I'll give everyone a minute to get it set up. So like, get a piece of paper out, a pen, like write 1 to 8 on a piece of paper so that you know which answer's which. Open up the test paper. Let me know if there's any issues, and I will set a timer. I'll start it in a minute.
It doesn't allow access.
Okay, cool. Let me try again. Here we go. Thank you. One second. Let's see if I can just send you the. Yeah, it's like tricky with the school accounts. They're often like difficult to share things with. All right. I'm gonna put the paper in. Okay, hopefully. Oh, that was a direct message. Sorry, that's to everyone. Let me just pop the paper in for everyone who can't access it on the. There we go. That should that one should work. We'll just have to see a picture of my cat. All right.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. It's always really tricky with the like DOE schools. Like it's hard to share stuff. I think you guys have like quite intense, quite rightly, but like there's like different security issues with stuff. All right, perfect. Everyone good? Anyone need more time? Amazing. All right, so just to reiterate, we're doing questions 1 to 8 of module 1. Questions 1 to 8, and that will be in 12 minutes. We'll review them. If you have any questions while you're going, just pop them in the chat. Yeah, while we're doing this, even if you think you can see the answer, it's really worth practicing the method of covering, anticipating, revealing, and eliminating, because you want to be able to get quite quick at that so that you can apply it to the really difficult, some of those tricky module 2 ones. So even if you think you can just get the answer immediately, try practicing with the method. Also, no need to send me your answers. Just keep a note of them. We'll go over them together. Because yeah, if you want to, that's fine. But you definitely don't have to. Just write them down, and then I'll be asking question by question. Yeah, you won't be able to type on the document. So just write down your answers with a pen and paper, right? Because it's like a PDF, so there won't be typing on it. Obviously, on the real one, you can click the answers, but this is the paper version of the digital SAT, which is useful for this kind of context. We're coming to like just under 2 minutes left. If anyone needs a little bit more time, I'm happy to give it. So just say just message me in the chat, just saying if you think you need a couple more minutes, and I'll put a couple more minutes on the clock. All right, fantastic. Let's review the answers. If anyone still needs a bit longer, it doesn't really matter. You guys have the access to that paper. You can go over it, or you can work along with us. All right. So, question 1. What did everyone get? Remember, we'd be ignoring our answer choices to begin with. Yeah, any more answers for question 1? Yeah, so here with question 1, I think a lot of you are right here. So when if we approach this one, but for me, the context clues would be because it represented the sounds of spoken Cherokee, so it was easy to learn and quickly achieved something used. And then I think the real clue here is that by 1830, over 90% of the Cherokee people could read and write it. So we were I would say it would be something like popular use, and then obviously we would get rid of infrequent because that's the opposite, unintended, careful. And so here, as lots of you have got, the answer is A, widespread. Fantastic. Great. All right. Number 2. What did everyone get for this one? Yeah, perfect. So it says other researchers readily something her work as groundbreaking. And then I think the real key here is recognition. So maybe we even come up with recognize. Often you can use the language in the passage as your context clue. So if we want something that's recognized, we know that underestimated doesn't make sense. Neither does denied. Neither does should. So here we would want acknowledged. Really good job, everybody. All right, perfect. Number 3. What did everyone get? So we'd be ignoring our answer choices to begin with. Yep, perfect. So here what we have is that they something the laws by devising policies and administering services in accordance with them. So we would maybe have something like like administered the laws, basically. We could use that word again. And so if we look at the answer choices, we see that like mimic doesn't make sense, improvise doesn't make sense, presume doesn't make sense. So here we want implement. I don't know if anyone's noticed that the like answers to 1, 2, and 3 have all been A. So on the SAT, this happens like a lot. I think often students will like second guess themselves and be like, oh, it couldn't possibly be all of these in a row. Often it is. Also with that, like you don't ever know which one you might have got wrong. So like don't feel like you can't pick the same letter many times in a row. All right, perfect. Number 4, what did people get for this one? Any more answers before we discuss it? Yeah, perfect. So here we're saying that like this cropping system known as the Three Sisters is a something web of relations, right? So we like know that we're going to need like an adjective here, right? So then our context clues would be kind of like this, often, the colon here also helps. We know that we get the kind of like explanation. So here it says that like maize provides the structure in which the beans grow, the structure, the squash vines cover the soil, blah, blah, blah. So it's this like kind of like complicated like network, right? We're getting the description of it. So I would say like maybe my anticipation here would be like complex. And then if we revealed the answer choices, we could see that like indecipherable isn't really like what it can't be indecipherable, right? Because we've actually been told what it is, so it's obviously a bit able to be deciphered. It doesn't make sense. It's more than ornamental. There's like actually like a real purpose to it that we're being shown. It's like not, we don't have any evidence as to whether it's obscure, so here we want intricate, meaning like complex here. Fantastic. All right, number 5, what did everyone get? Also, obviously, if anyone has any questions about any of them, either like raise your hand or pop it in the chat or just shout out. Like, I want to make sure that everyone, um, all right, we've got a bit more of a mix of answers here. Right. So let's go over number 5. It's a little tricky, right? So we've been talking about these like artisans. They typically something the bronze and brass casting techniques that have been passed down through their families since the 13th century. Then what's really important, but they don't strictly observe every tradition. For example, they use air conditioning motors instead of handheld bellows to heat stuff. So we're being told that they typically do something with these like traditional methods, but not always. So if they don't entirely do it, we would say they typically like follow, I guess, like follow the old methods, right? Because it's like there's a few elements which they don't, but like typically they are following them. So if we like then reveal our answer choices, we can see that experiment with doesn't mean follow, improve on is not. I mean, this would be the example of the improvements if they're, but they're typically like following it, so it doesn't mean improve on. Grapple with doesn't make sense in this context. They're not like fighting with it or trying to understand it. So here we'd want adhere to, which means like act in accordance with. So they're like mostly following tradition, but not always. All right, perfect. Any questions on this one before we move on to 6? Great. All right, let's cover our answer choices. What did everyone get for number 6? Oh, the answer for question 5 was B, adhere to, for whoever's that just disconnected. So they mostly like follow or adhere to the casting techniques, and sometimes they have like some new methods. All right, fantastic. Obviously disconnections happen all the time. All right, great. We've got quite a lot of answers. Anyone else want to share that answer for number 6? All right, let's look through it together. So we're saying that some economic historians, something that late 19th and early 20th century households experienced an economy of scale. They assumed that large households spent less on food per person than small ones. And then we have this economist, however, looking at the data disproves this supposition. So here we have, like, I think the key like clues here are the word assumed and supposition, which is like, to suppose something. So I'd say we would have like assume could work, or like suppose, right? So then we would reveal our answer choices. Regretted doesn't make sense. They're kind of not questioning it. They're actually like supposing something. Contrived doesn't make sense in this context. So we'd want surmised, which is to suppose something without evidence. Fantastic. All right, great. Number 7. What did everybody get for number 7? Any other answers before we review it quickly? Yeah, this one's like a little tricky. So we're being told that the work of this painter, the power comes from the tension among his something influences. And again, we have this like colon, right? Which is then like telling us what the influences are. So we get told that we have classical European portraiture, the American pop art movement, and the intertribal painting style that reflects all these things. So what we have is this like real like variety of influences, right? And so I think it would be like among his like different, like various, but like these things are not necessarily influences that we would necessarily like think go together. They're like very like varied, right? So if we're like looking at the answer choices, I think that like the influences are complementary doesn't work, because we wouldn't normally like these are very like distinct and like different art styles, and so we wouldn't like necessarily say that they're complementary. We're not really being given like we're being told that there's tension between them as well, so complementary wouldn't make sense in this context. They're not unknown. We've literally just been told them. We've not been told that they're not popular. Also, like classic European portraiture is far from unknown, as is like pop art. They're definitely not interchangeable because they're distinct. So here we would want disparate. So this would be like disparate, meaning like containing elements very different from one another. All right, perfect. Okay, last one. What did everyone get for number 8? Yeah, a variety here. So I just don't want to overrun, but in this one, we're being told that remember also the contrast words are useful, like though there have been, so we've been told that there are many studies about the effect of high altitude on blood chemistry. There is a something on the effect of blood chemistry below sea level, right? So we've had this contrast being set up. So we've been told that there's like many studies on this one. So we know that we need to have the opposite, right? Because of this contrast. And so we would have like, there is a like lack of like something like that, right? Does that make sense to everyone? And then when we like reveal our answer choices, we can look through this verisimilitude doesn't work. Profusion is like the opposite of what we want. That means like lots of. quarrel about. We're not saying that they're arguing, we're just saying that there's more of one thing and not the other. And so here we want like paucity of studies on neoaffective blood chemistry at this one. Like paucity just means like small or insufficient quantities. All right, fantastic. Any questions before we finish today? Great, thank you so much for your answer.
What was number 6 again?
The answer for 6 was A, surmised, which means like to make an assumption about something without the evidence, because we've been said that they assumed it and that it was a supposition. All right, perfect. No, you're so welcome. All right, well, thank you.
Is there a place to study high-level vocabulary for the SAT?
What is this like representative of it? What did you ask? Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
Is there a place to study like high-level vocabulary for the SAT?
There's like I can like email everyone a list. There is like, it's like tricky because like obviously vocab is kind of like the best thing you can do really is to just like read a lot and then like, you know, look up words when you don't know them. There are like a list of like 100 words that come up a lot that I will like make sure that gets emailed out to all of you, which is like can be really helpful to do make like flashcards or something. There are like 100 words that are most common. I think that like especially on like these like the second module, sometimes the words are really difficult, so this is why this process of elimination is really helpful, and also like making sure that you're never like scared to choose a mystery choice. But I will make sure that 100-word list is like emailed to everyone.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. All right, perfect. So everyone, like it's 12 o'clock now, so I don't want to like take up more of your time. We know there's math bootcamp in the afternoon. So thank you all so much for coming. I think tomorrow Tyler will be working on you with like the rhetorical synthesis and the transitions. And then on Friday, I'll be back and we'll be doing like a review of everything and lots of practice together. So feel free to go. I can stick around for a couple of minutes if anyone has any specific questions, but otherwise, thank you so much. Make sure that your full name is in the chat for attendance before you go. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much. The answer to question 4 was intricate, because we have this example of this like intricate web that's being shown, right? Or this like interdependent stuff. All right, fantastic. Any questions, Aiden?